Right. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay. Right. All right, looks like I am live now. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay. I'm using a new mic, so hopefully it's better audio for you guys, at least on Facebook Live. TikTok, you guys should be able to hear me okay, and the private group as well. All right, so today we're going to be talking about negotiating opposing opinions, and we're going to talk about 5 tips that you can negotiate a happy outcome. And if you guys have ever been in a situation, whether it's a personal or a professional situation, where you're in a discussion or an argument with somebody and you just find that your blood is starting to boil, then you're going to want to stick around for all 5 tips, because this is going to be really, really helpful for you. Okay. And I've been doing this kind of stuff. One of the positive things of growing up in a traumatic environment is I learned negotiation skills way, way early. And I remember being a kid sitting at the dining room table negotiating between my mom and her boyfriend as they were arguing over bills and stuff like that. And I had this very unique knack of being able to see both sides and explain to the other one what the other person was meaning, and diffusing the emotions that came along with that. So this training is going to be super helpful for you. And if this is your first time joining me, my name is Tina. I'm a happiness coach, and I help business owners deal with the emotional side of business. And so we're going to go through the 5 tips. Okay, so let me just get this. Okay, so the first one, whether this is a personal relationship or a professional one, you are going to want to start your discussion with positive intent. Here, let me get back. There we go. It's a little bit clearer now. There you go. Oh, TikTok, I have to switch that around for you guys. There we go. You can see a little better now. Set positive intent. If I get my big melon out of the way. All right. So set positive intent. You want to go into the discussion, the negotiation, or the talk that you guys are having. You want to set the intention that everybody walks away from this happy. You really want to be able to watch out for your own tendencies to, I'm going to stick it to them, I'm going to win at all costs, I'm going to get my way, I've had enough and I'm going to say my piece. You don't want to go in with that kind of thing. You want to go in with the intention of, how can we come out of this so that everybody is able to come away happy from this discussion, right? You want positive results. Hey, Cammie, I'm a trainer, I'm a coach. Yes. So you want to set those intentions that when you're going into this discussion, when you're going into the argument, you want to come away that everybody's going to walk away from this feeling like they are happy, that they've won. Energy Man, thank you so much for the roses. I appreciate you. What you don't want to do is you don't want somebody coming away feeling like they had to give in, that they are getting the short end of the stick. That will end up coming back and biting you in the butt afterwards. So you definitely don't want to go into that negotiation with a fight, right? If you have to check yourself if you are a little bit on the competitive side. Thank you. If you're a little bit on the competitive side and you have that tendency, so watch out for it. If you're like, because whether this is negotiating at work or whether this is negotiating in your relationships, you definitely want to make sure that somebody's not coming away with hurt feelings, because even though you may win short term, you will lose long term. It will end up costing you, and you may not even realize it's costing you. But those negative feelings, whoever you're negotiating with, if they come away with negative feelings, then, or they feel like afterwards when they walk away that they got, bait and switch kind of thing, it's not going to be a good thing. So if you're like negotiating in a way, it's like, oh, well, they didn't ask for this amount of money in the salary negotiations, so that's on them, right? They didn't ask for it. I was gonna pay them more, but they asked for way less. Even though that's a short-term win for you as the business owner, it's going to be a long-term loss, because eventually somebody's going to find out. It's like, oh, even if that was the most that you could hire for that position. I know myself, I negotiated, I didn't have a whole lot of negotiating wiggle room, and I didn't have a whole lot of say in what I was able to negotiate for a salary. I needed something right away. Unfortunately, even though I did an amazing job in that role, it was 20 grand a year less than what I was used to making. And so that was a hard hit. And because of the restrictions within the company, I couldn't gain that 20 grand back until I left the company and then came back and renegotiated at a higher rate. But there were parameters within there that I couldn't go up a certain amount, right? So even if you negotiate in a way that you think that you got away with something, you got a steal of a deal, and you know that the other person maybe was naive or didn't ask properly, don't be that person where you don't bring that up, because hurt feelings will end up coming out of that, right? Or it will erode trust, even if they maybe kind of don't know enough and they accept, oh, well, that's just the best that I was able to get. If they find out afterwards they could have got more, then it's going to erode the trust, and you don't want to do that. So you always want to make sure that you're negotiating in a way that everybody comes out of this feeling like they are happy, right? So that is, set that intention, set that positive goal that everybody walks away happy from the deal. And when you do that, keep that in mind as you go through the negotiation as well, because there may be sticky points that come up that are like, I knew they were going to bring up that, and that's really pissing me off. Remind yourself, everybody's walking away from this happy, right? Okay. So number 2, you want to monitor reactivity. Yours, number 1, right? So this is why it's important to do this inner work stuff that I talk about. It's not crunchy granola stuff, because if you're not aware of what makes you reactive, then you are negotiating from a weak standpoint. If you are not able to control your own emotions, then you're going to get triggered easily. And you do not want to negotiate from that perspective. That is a fear perspective, and nobody's going to come away from that happy. Tempers are going to start to raise, or people are going to shut down, not really talk about what needs to actually be talked about. So here's some strategies of recognizing when you are starting to feel reactive. Say during the negotiation, somebody says something, there's a little bit of a comment, or they bring up another point, or you told them, hey, no, we're not discussing that, we're not doing these things. They bring it up, and you start to find yourself reactive. That temper, that switch goes off. If you have that, that it's like, whew. Okay, take that breath, number 1. Okay, so do some breathing. You also want to make sure, even before you go into the negotiation, check what I call the 5 halts: hungry, angry, lonely, tired, or sick. So if you're any of those 5, go deal with those before you have your discussion, your negotiation. And again, this is personal or professional. This stuff works, okay? If you find you're getting triggered, you are going to want to give yourself some space. Don't just fire off and get your licks in, because you're going to end up taking shots at each other. And that defeats the purpose of coming out of this negotiation, coming out of this talk with everybody feeling happy, like it's been resolved. You guys are on the same side of the table. You don't want to be combative, okay? Even if it's a heated discussion or you guys really don't agree, you want to seek to understand versus win, okay? Seek to understand the other side and how can I help them see my side so that we can come together and feel like everybody is got what they wanted, got what they needed out of this discussion. Because if you are doing it from a place of being cutthroat, that energy, you don't want to put that back out there. That comes back to you tenfold. So even if you win this one negotiation, you're going to have 10 other negotiations where you're the one that's getting fucked over, and you don't want that. So don't do it. Don't put it out there, okay? So if you find that you're getting reactive, ask for some space. So maybe you need to reschedule the meeting for another time. You know what? You can take a bathroom break if you just need like 5 minutes to compose yourself, or grab a coffee, something like that. Buy some time, give yourself some space so that you can adjust and get your own reactivity under control. So that's from your perspective. Now, if you see somebody else is getting reactive, what you want to do is remind them, it's like, okay, obviously I've said something that has got things a little bit heated here. I just want to remind you, I do want to understand your side of things, and I want us to be able to come out of this situation, out of this discussion, out of this negotiation, where we all have what it is that we want to the best of our abilities. Now, you can't always get that, maybe, you know, because sometimes you're negotiating with somebody and they're saying black and you say white, and you say up and they say down, and it's very difficult when you have opposing, very polarized views to try and come to the center to collaborate and actually come out of this situation where everybody is happy, okay? So the third tip, number 3, you want to know your parameters. You need to know this stuff before you're going into it. You have to have some boundaries, like, you know, think of a square of, okay, so first of all, what is my bottom line? What is the, you know, deal breaker, the walk away point? And this could be like, you know, a price negotiation, or hours of service, or, you know, they want kids, I don't, kind of, or I want kids, they don't, whatever it is, right? You can make sure that you know what you are not willing to accept. You have to know that, okay? It's really, really important. And this isn't so that you can go in going, well, if I don't get this, then that's it, I'm walking away. No. You want to know where your bottom line is so that you know if it's just above it, if it's halfway, where are you meeting at, and then what's the point where this is no longer beneficial for you, okay? It prevents you from negotiating in a deal in a way that ends up causing you to be resentful, because you don't want to agree to something either that after you give a little bit of time, you're like, shit, I really didn't want that, and that's really irritating me now. So you definitely want to make sure that you come back, know what your bottom line is. You also want to know what your wiggle room points are. Like, I don't care if they do the dishes. I'm fine if I am always the one doing the dishes. Or I love to cook, right? So if they don't want to cook, I'm fine with cooking, right? So know where you're able to have wiggle room, where you're not. So when I was in a work environment, it's like a lot of times I would negotiate transport contracts, and I would negotiate with being able to drop a set number of trailers for them to be able to load, and then we would kind of do drop switch trailers. And then sometimes the vendors or the providers, they would want to have more trailers than we're comfortable dropping at their facility. And it also, sometimes they'd ask for 10 trailers, and the volume of product that we would pick up from them maybe only warranted 2. So knowing your information, knowing your stats, knowing the parameters of what it is that you're trying to negotiate, what is the best ideal outcome for you, and then also understanding what kind of outcomes that they might be looking for. And this is important because when you're going into it, it's like, if you know that there's something that you absolutely can't budge on, so like for instance, when I was negotiating, that there were certain fines. If they didn't show up for an appointment, that there was a set $1,000 fine if they did not show up for their appointment. So that's something that I couldn't change. That is non-negotiable. That is what it is. And so I can't change that. But if they're upset about that, what is it that I can have that will sweeten the deal for them to make it more palatable, make them happier? What are their wiggle room points? Can I give them bonuses? What are my negotiating bargaining chips? So when I understand that, then I'm able to instead of inflicting punishment, I am offering additional bonuses, rewards of, hey, you know what? I can't give you this thing, but I can give you this. Or you wanted 10 trailers, I'm thinking 2, but you know what? I can give you 5. Would that work, right? So knowing where your wiggle room is, where you can negotiate, where you can give a little, right? And what your bargaining chips are and what you can leverage, and always making it come from a positive that they've come out feeling happier, feeling like they've won some ground, right? You don't want to feel like you've just done a clean sweep and it was your way or the highway. Although you can negotiate like that, and there are some people that do, and maybe there's some circumstances, but the majority of the one, if you are going to continue having a relationship with this person, personal or professional, then you definitely want to negotiate happy outcomes. You don't want to have that cutoff, right? As much as possible, you don't want to have that cutoff, because now you have an enemy instead of an ally, and you just definitely don't want that. Okay, so that is number 3, know your parameters. Number 4, clear communication. This is so important. Now, a lot of times we think we're being really, really clear and we've explained it, or sometimes we make the mistake of assuming, make an ass out of you and me, and we assume that the other person understands exactly what it is that we're talking about. So one of the ways that I prevent that from happening is when I negotiate, I will ask them when we've come to our agreements, we're towards the end of it, and I will get the other person to restate what it is that they believe my takeaways are, and what their takeaways are. What the outcomes and the expectations. Hey Chris, welcome, good to see you. So what the expectations, understandings, and outcomes are, and it's really important to get them to say it in their own words, so that you say it in your own words, so that you can clarify and oh no, I didn't need you to do all that. Because there's some times where I assumed too much, and they're like, no, I don't need you to do all that. I only need this piece. Oh, okay, well that makes it easier, right? So sometimes there can be miscommunication, and you definitely want to take this as an opportunity before you walk away from the negotiation or the discussion, making sure that everybody is clear on what the expectations are, what the outcomes are, and how to, and if you are going to do any follow-ups, or if you're doing any check-ins, that you're clear on any dates, timelines, who owns what. That's really important when you're doing any of those negotiations, what the next steps are, okay? And being able to make sure that you ask those things of everyone, and so that you have a clear understanding and everybody is on the same page, because it can go from being a happy negotiation and you think everything's good and you walk away and you feel happy, but then you don't end up getting the results because you maybe had the discussion, and sometimes that'll happen where maybe you vent off steam more in personal relationships, I think, but I've seen this in business too, where nobody gets the real clear, oh, I thought so-and-so was going to do that. Oh, well, no, I thought you were going to do that. But you didn't clarify, you didn't set any timelines, you didn't set any expectations. So you definitely want to take care of those, because if not, you can end up having a happy negotiation go into a sour one, and you definitely don't want that. Okay, so last one. Strategies if it gets heated. Okay, so during the negotiation, somebody says something and it just gets your goat, and now you're like, oh, that's it, gloves are off, man, let's go. You definitely want to make sure, again, you're managing your own reactions, being aware of what it is that you need, what will trigger you, and what you need to do to keep yourself calm. Because if you can't keep yourself calm, you are not negotiating, you are not discussing with a clear head. And if you're in that triggered state, you're now in a state of fear, which means anger, which means lashing out, and you're no longer in setting a positive intention. Now you're in battle mode, and that is not a good place to negotiate from, especially if you want to retain the relationship and you want to have that relationship grow, whether it's a personal one or a professional one. You definitely don't want to have any name calling. You don't want any sarcasm. Okay, sarcasm is to tear the flesh. So think of it when you want to give somebody a sarcastic dig. And this is really hard because I kind of grew up in a rough environment, and then I worked in a rough environment, and if it wasn't for sarcasm, I don't think anybody would talk to each other, but there were always like little shots and digs that were being done. And I have to sometimes remember, especially when I'm in newer company where they don't know me that well, they don't know what's a joke and what's not a joke. So I might think it's funny, but somebody else may not. And so always err on the side of caution with that. Sarcasm is to tear the flesh. And is that what I want to do? Is that going to get me a happy outcome if I tear somebody apart with my words? No. So if I find I'm in the state where I can feel that in me and it's just on the tip of your tongue, breathe, slow down how you talk, lower your volume, stay calm. If you can, buy some time. So this is where a bathroom break might come in handy. Getting up and going and making a coffee or a tea. Asking, you know what, I just need to table this for 5 minutes, 10 minutes a day, whatever it is that you need to do, to give yourself that time so that you can cool down. And you can do this if you see the other person is getting heated. So this works both ways. And one of the lines that I would use is, you've given me some additional information that's really valuable that I wasn't aware of before. And I think I'm going to need some additional time to process this. And I think we'll have a better outcome if I take some time to think through this, and then we'll come back at this time, or negotiate a new time to discuss. Or if there's additional information, maybe they caught you flat-footed, that they brought up something that you completely weren't prepared for. And I've made the mistake in some negotiations where I've gone and said yes to something that I shouldn't have said yes to, and no to things that I shouldn't have said no to. So it's really important that if new information, so this is why it's important to understand the parameters, which is in point number 3, knowing your parameters. So this is really useful too when you are having a personal discussion, right? And you start to say, argue about the trash wasn't taken out. And all of a sudden it comes into a fight about your mother-in-law or your siblings or whatever, something completely off topic. Know the parameters of what it is that you're trying to discuss and coming out of this with a happy outcome. So if either you or somebody else starts bringing in something that is outside of those parameters, getting it back on track, saying that's a great piece of information and I think we definitely should discuss that. However, I want to stick to this particular topic and then we will revisit this either at another time or another meeting. Just to keep us on track for this, let's focus on this initial discussion topic or negotiation, right? So you definitely always want to bring it back to center, and that's why it's really important to know those parameters, or you can get off topic really easy and then you come out, you've spent all this time and you haven't gotten the resolution that you were looking for, and now everybody's feeling like things are left undone. So you definitely want to pay attention to when you are getting triggered, or if the other person starts to get heated, or pay attention to anxiety too, or if they kind of get quiet. So pay attention to how the other person is responding in the negotiation, because you might be thinking, hey, I'm doing great. There's no issue here. I'm calm, cool, collected. They appear to be calm. They're not really saying a whole lot. They seem to be agreeing. This is where clear communication and getting the other person to talk and say what it is that they thought the outcomes were and what they feel is responsible, and making sure that they are actually in agreement. And I oftentimes will give them an out, right? I will say, if this is not something that you want to do, it's okay for you to be able to come back and tell them it's okay if this isn't something that you want. We can change it, or if you need more time to think about it, let them know that they can do that. Because the last thing I want is for them to feel like they were strong-armed into the negotiation. Now, this goes against all of my sales training. You're not allowed to do that kind of stuff. But I would rather bring somebody on board that was fully on board, rather than somebody that made the decision based on emotion, off the heat of the moment, and then afterwards regretted it. I don't want that. I want them to come on board, fully on board, willingly, that I didn't, talk really fast and, got them all hyped up and then made sure that, they just came on board, and then we'll figure it out. And I can be guilty of that, because when I'm selling a product I really, really believe in, I can get really excited and passionate, and I have to make sure I'm still managing my own reactions so that other people are not picking that up, right? So, yeah. And the last piece is making sure that you stay on track, right? And then if for whatever reason you don't get to the happy outcome, making sure that you have a follow-up call, meeting, or another chance to discuss the situation. Maybe you couldn't agree on certain things. Maybe they had to have some takeaways of like, I don't know if we can do it if you only drop 2 trailers. We really needed those 10. And somebody else that they're talking to, maybe they aren't the full decision maker. Maybe they have to, or you bring something up that they weren't prepared to negotiate on. So make sure that you are able to give them some time. Now, these are definitely higher level, longer term negotiations, and you want to be prepared as much as possible of whatever potential things that they might be upset of, and know what is it that you can give them instead of the thing that they want. Maybe you can't give them what it is that they want, but you can give them these 3 things or these 2 things instead. And hopefully that is something that they would be happy to have, right? And you would be happy because you're able to get the thing that you want. So always negotiate for win-win, and instead of being on polar opposites where one's saying black and one's saying white, the other saying up, the other saying down, you definitely want to come to a middle ground when you are negotiating so that everybody walks away from the deal happy, and you are much more likely to do business again and again and again, because they will feel good, you will feel good, and you're not negotiating from a place of fear, resentment, anger, any of those negative feelings. And this is why it's really important to do inner work, understand the emotional side of business, because emotions, more than systems, will cause your business to tank. So, guys, hope that training was helpful for you guys. If this is your first time joining me, you can catch the replay. I will be uploading it on my YouTube channel, which is Coach Tina B 125. So click on the subscribe button and you'll get notified when I've uploaded the replay. And if you're on Facebook, you can join the Happiness Coach Facebook group, and I'm going to be doing some additional things in that group that are just in that private group. Okay, so guys, I hope that was helpful, and we will talk to you again later. Bye.